How's it going, guys? I just wanted to make a video really quick. I made another video actually talking about in particular New Testament textual criticism and where I stand on the subject. What school of thought do I take? But in that video, I finished it, and it's going to be uploading here soon. But I realized that I made that video under the assumption that everyone in my audience knows what textual criticism is and why it's important. So, which isn't necessarily the case. So what I decided to do is go ahead and make a brief video outlining, at least in a nutshell, what textual criticism is and why textual criticism is important. Essentially, in a nutshell, it comes down to the question of how did we get our Bible, right? So particularly what we're talking about is the New Testament, okay? The Old Testament, it's similar, but it's kind of it's its own thing, and it's a little bit different. But for now, we're going to be focusing on the New Testament. What happens is when the New Testament authors, when they wrote down their letters that went out to different churches, right? Specific churches, there were specific people that needed encouragement or rebuking in some cases. Well, those authors wrote those letters down on actual paper, and it was called papyri. Well, what happened was they then sent those out to different people, those different churches around the world, and what happened was that people went to those churches that had those letters, and they said, "Hey, can I make a copy of those?" And hey, I hear, for example, let's say someone from Rome went to somebody at Corinth and said, "Hey, I heard Paul wrote you a letter. He wrote us one too. Do you want a copy?" And the people at Corinth go, "Yeah." And then the people from Rome made a copy of the letter from Corinth. And so just like that, copies and copies and copies began to circulate throughout the world. Now, what happens is that when people write stuff down, and I've done this I don't know how many times in writing out a Bible verse or even copying a quote from someone, that you get what's typos, misspellings, and things like that. Or maybe your eye skips a line and you accidentally forget to add something, or maybe your brain, you accidentally write something twice. And that's pretty common, okay? So what ends up happening is, fast forward now to our present day, and what we have is a very large amount of these old manuscripts. We actually have somewhere in the ballpark between 5,000 and 6,000. It's at least 5,500. I know that's a conservative guess, but I believe that there are many as 6,000. However, officially documented, we have at least 5,500. Well, what happens is they have these manuscripts, right? And scholars go and look at these manuscripts, and no two manuscripts are exactly the same. They all vary from each other slightly, okay? Now, the good news is that most of those, the vast majority of those differences, have to do with spellings or, grammatical typos. So things that are obvious that there was a mistake. One guy, like let's say in English, one guy might spell my name John, might spell it Jon. Another guy might spell it John. Another guy might say Johnny. You all know that it's John, right? Someone might forget, another English example would be, they forgot punctuation, okay? Now, Greek doesn't have punctuation, but I'm just trying to explain this in layman's terms. So what happened was these documents, they spread around the world, and now scholars have the job of trying to correlate and go through these manuscripts and find out which is the accurate reading. And that is the purpose of textual criticism. So there are different schools of thought on which version or which method is the best. There's the Sturzians, there's the majority text guys, there's the Byzantine prioritists, there's the reasoned eclectic, there's the thoroughgoing eclectic, there's the Textus Receptus. There's many different versions. At the end of the day, the good news is that no matter what text you're using, all of them in the essentials are going to be the same. There are, of course there's a jet right now. I'm outside of an Air Force base. There are going to be differences amongst the texts. However, I believe at least 85 to 90% of your manuscripts, regardless of what method you use or what New Testament manuscript you use, they're going to be at least 85, I believe, to 90% the same, at least in their content, okay? Now, again, there are differences, but that comes down to disagreements on which manuscripts are better and which methods are better. So I'm going to be liking to do in the future more comprehensive videos on the different schools of thought But this is meant to be a very brief description of New Testament manuscripts and how textual criticism is done. So anyway, if you like this, go ahead and leave a comment telling maybe which school of thought you personally subscribe to, and I'm hoping to make more videos about this in the future. Anyway, talk to you guys later. God bless.